Gilmore.
Thank you for this.
I wish to share my time with Deputy Joan Burton.
Agreed.
Ceann Comhairle, last Thursday, a majority of Irish voters chose to reject the Lisbon Treaty. That is the decision of the referendum. The Lisbon Treaty is rejected and that decision must be respected. The Labour Party campaigned vigorously for a yes vote because we believed that the treaty was an important step forward in creating a progressive, democratic and social Europe that would better address the needs of the people of Europe, and because we believed it to be in Ireland's national interest. I want to pay tribute here on the floor of the House for the work in particular of my colleague Deputy Joe Costello, who coordinated and led the Labour Party campaign. I strongly supported the treaty, and with my colleagues in the Labour Party I stand over every statement we made about it. I believed that there were substantial benefits for Ireland and for Labour's vision of a social Europe to be had from a yes vote. We place particular emphasis on the inclusion of the Charter of Fundamental Rights in the European treaties. And if I might make one comment about the conduct of the campaign, it is to regret that perhaps similar emphasis on the Charter of Fundamental Rights was not placed by others who were campaigning on the yes side. I was concerned too that a no vote would send our country into a period of added uncertainty at a time when economically we have enough uncertainty to contend with. It has to be said, however, that this was not an easy treaty to communicate. It was not based on one particular big idea, but rather contained a series of reforms intended to make the European Union more effective and democratic. The absence of a unifying theme that could be related to the everyday lives of people meant that from day one we were explaining, and in politics, when you're explaining, you're losing. It has to be admitted that the result last week also reflects on erosion of confidence in politics. People did not accept the advice of the main political parties. That erosion of confidence, which is not unrelated to a decade of revelations at tribunals, must be of real concern. And as political leaders, we must acknowledge that fact and seek to find a way forward. We must also, I believe, learn some of the lessons from the campaign itself and the manner in which it was conducted. And certainly the Labour Party will accept its share of responsibility in that regard. As a result of the vote last week, Ireland is now facing its biggest diplomatic challenge since the Second World War. 50 years of foreign policy centred on the objective of putting Ireland at the heart of Europe, and the many patient accomplishments won on the back of that policy are now at stake. How we respond, the leadership that we offer, will determine, perhaps for a generation, what it means to be Irish in Europe. And how the Union deals with the democratic verdict of the Irish people will speak volumes about the value placed on democracy and the status of smaller member states in a community of nations dedicated to peace and democracy. The process of closer cooperation on vital global issues, which Lisbon was intended to advance, will not succeed unless the Irish vote is fully respected. Nor can Europe prosper unless it is fully committed to the principle of equality among member states. That is why there can be no question of going back to the people for a simple rerun of the Lisbon Treaty. We must instead listen to the concerns of the Irish people and understand them. While there were many domestic factors that became significant in the campaign, it must also be accepted that there are other member states which would have difficulty in securing endorsement for the Lisbon Treaty at a referendum. The Irish vote, therefore, must be seen as reflective, not just of an Irish problem, but of a broader failure of the European Union to win the hearts as well as the minds of the people of Europe. The irony, of course, is that the Lisbon Treaty was intended to address that same democratic deficit, but it must be treated with utmost seriousness now. For that reason, Ireland must be given an opportunity to reflect on the outcome of the referendum. We in Ireland must ultimately drive forward the process of finding a solution. But this is not just an Irish problem, it is a European problem and will require a European solution. At home, it is the task of political leaders to listen to the Irish people, to listen and also to lead. I do not believe that the Irish people are the ungrateful children of the European project. I believe we are an outward-looking, progressive people who want to be at the heart of the European Union. I do not believe either that our relationship with Europe was based solely on the continuation of a flow of European funds into Ireland. That is not who we are, and it is not what we aspire to be. Much that we have achieved economically and socially over the past 35 years has been predicated on the underlying assumption that we seek to be full members and full participants in the European project, a project dedicated to peace and prosperity in Europe. Membership of the European Union was fundamental to the economic renaissance of Ireland in the past 2 decades. Membership of the Union was also central to the important advances in social legislation, and we must not lose sight of those advances. Indeed, to those on the left in Ireland, and to those who say they are on the left, and who ask why the Labour Party is so firm in its support for Europe, I say this: where do you think Irish women got the right to equal pay for equal work? Where did most of our employment legislation in recent times come from? And from where did we get most of our environment protection legislation? Those things came through the European process, and they came largely because of gains that were made by the left, by the social democratic movement in Europe, from which we ultimately benefited. Europe enabled post-colonial Ireland to come out from under the shadow of Britain and to assert its independence as an equal and respected state in Europe. Look too at who cheered most loudly last Friday. Across Europe, the people who rejoiced at the Irish result were the Eurosceptic wing of the Conservative Party in Britain, the UK Independence Party, the right-wing Freedom Party in Austria, the National Front in France, and the Civil Democratic Party in the Czech Republic, a party so Thatcherite that they regard Margaret Thatcher herself as doctrinally unsound. If the extreme right in Europe is cheering so loudly, then the question has to be asked: was it really such a left-wing thing to do to urge people to vote no? Of course, we all have concerns about the direction that the European project might take. But that is precisely why we supported its democratisation and the insertion of vital social clauses, including the Charter of Fundamental Rights in the Lisbon Treaty. The Labour Party is disappointed with last Thursday's result. But we can look anybody in the eye today and tell them that we told them the truth about the Lisbon Treaty, that we gave our honest opinion on its merits, and that we did so in the best interests of Ireland and of the Irish people whom we represent. We fully respect the right of individual citizens to make up their own minds and to decide on the treaty. That, after all, is what a referendum is about. That is why we have referenda, so that individual citizens can exercise their sovereignty. We are now in uncertain times, and it is difficult to draw an accurate roadmap at this stage. There are, however, a number of essentials which need to be settled. Firstly, that the Irish decision stands and must be respected. Secondly, that we must avoid a two-speed Europe where we are left behind. The extent to which that will be a problem will depend on how many other states ratified the treaty. They are entitled to decide for themselves on the basis of their own democratic procedures, just as we are entitled to decide in our own manner. Considerable work will be needed at political and diplomatic level to ensure that the Irish decision is understood and respected, and that Ireland remains engaged in Europe. This will require enormous political and diplomatic skill. We also need a process by which the decision last Thursday and the reasons behind it can be fully analysed and understood. This goes beyond the arguments which were advanced by the no side. I do not believe that the result last Thursday was simply a reflection back to us of the arguments which were advanced by the no side, particularly since some of those were directly contradictory. There were concerns, some of them domestic, which influenced the way that people voted. And there were uncertainties and concerns about the future, which I believe underlay the decision that was made last Thursday. There are three issues in particular that we can begin to look at. The first of these is neutrality, where despite the arguments advanced about what is actually in the Lisbon Treaty, some lingering doubts remained about what might happen at some stage in the future. We need to address these concerns, including by emphasising that the whole motivation behind the establishment of the European Union in the first place was to maintain peace in Europe by deepening the commonalities of interest among the peoples of Europe. Secondly, the issue of the loss of a commissioner seemed to evoke a strong feeling that we risked weakening our hand. Again, I know all the arguments about why that is not so, particularly given the future size of the Commission was agreed in the Nice Treaty, but it is still an issue that may have to be revisited. And thirdly, there's the issue of taxation. In the current economic climate, with deep unease about the future, this was a serious point of concern. Again, there was nothing in the treaty that affected our right to set our own tax rates. But however, noises coming from other countries about combined common corporate tax base were distinctly unhelpful. It will take time to understand what the real concerns were and how they can be addressed. And I don't pretend that we have all the answers today. We do need a period of reflection here in Ireland on the outcome. I welcome the support offered to Ireland at the meeting of foreign ministers on Monday, and I welcome the comments in particular made by the British Foreign Secretary over the weekend. When the Taoiseach has returned from his meeting in Brussels, I look forward to his report to the Dáil, after which time we can continue the work of finding a way forward.